up, Internet? Ask not your country what you could do for it. Ask what you could do for yourself. You know, my name is Matthew Kroll.
And your diction could do with a little finessing. My name is Shahir Dowd.
And this is the only podcast about movies, specifically the film Green Book.
Not to be confused with Green
Room, which is a very different film.
Yeah, not a lot of... Was there a lot of... No, there was a lot of racism.
Well, there was a lot of racism in that as well.
The commonality is racism.
Yes, just different...
Is that what the Green Lantern's about? Is Green Lantern about racism and yellow is
yellow's fear.
Yeah.
But also Green Lantern, I mean, no, I don't think so. I was trying to make the correlation. I don't really
Lantern
think I
was
could.
really just racism.
I mean, well, they do hate the Black Lanterns.
Oh, there you go.
Oh,
See,
no.
part of the cinematic universe of the color
DC.
No, the color green.
Oh, the green cinematic universe?
Yeah. I'm trying to think what other movies with the color green there we could. Now, let's move on. We are doing Green Book because of course. It is late. Because of course.
If you notice, my beginning was a little bit quieter than usual because we're recording this around midnight, and I'm trying to be a good neighbor.
Because of course. The Oscar nominations have just come out, and as we noted before, Green Room won Best Picture Drama. No, did it win? It won Best Comedy or Musical at the Golden Globes, and Bohemian Rhapsody won Best Drama.
Great.
Yeah. So, and it has just recently been nominated for an Oscar. So we felt it was imperative, like last year, to cover off all the Oscar-nominated films.
Let it be known from the beginning, I really wanted to see this movie.
That's true. You did want to see this movie. I forgot about that. I think we should talk about where our because I was a little apprehensive about it.
You were. I believe, and I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm gonna, and I love doing that.
Go ahead.
You were
Jam them in there.
You said something along the lines of, I don't really want to see it because I kind of think I know where it's going.
Right.
And we talked about that a little bit. We could talk about it more.
You know what? Yeah, we're gonna. Yeah, we should bring that up. Yeah. We should totally bring that up because I think that's going to be an interesting topic point. First off, so we are doing Green Room.
It's in the image of the podcast.
It has been nominated for Best Picture. There are a number of other films that have been nominated for Best Picture. The only one aside from Green Book that we haven't done at this point is Vice. So I guess we will have to do Vice in order to be completionists.
I've seen it.
I haven't seen it yet. So
oh my God, have I seen all the noms?
I believe you
haven't.
Well, okay, so if you've seen all the noms, here are the nominees for Best Picture at the Oscars, at the 2019 Oscars. And they are Black Panther.
Seen it.
Black Klansman.
Seen it.
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Seen it.
The Favorite.
Seen it.
We know with this. Green Book.
I'm going to say it. Seen it.
Yeah. Roma.
Seen it.
A Star is Born.
Seen it.
And Vice. So my question
to
you is, what is your favorite to win Best Picture at this point, having seen all the films?
Do you really need to ask me that?
Black Panther?
Here's the deal.
Okay. it's funny because I didn't even think about that.
That film is amazing as a film. It's in its genre of superhero. There's no question about that.
Okay.
But the fact that it is nominated, I don't think it's going to win. Okay, I think it should win.
Okay, what do you want to win?
Oh, Black Panther.
You want Black Panther?
Yeah.
Do you think Black Panther is the best picture amongst those nominees?
I think if we are going to use the term best picture as the most effective film for the most amount of people, yes.
Okay.
If we want to talk about
Bohemian Rhapsody made more money, I think.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Bohemian Rhapsody wasn't like a cultural touch point.
I'm just saying for effectiveness for people.
Effectiveness doesn't necessarily mean monetary.
Right. No, I might be wrong about that.
Yeah, and I don't know if I think Black Panther probably but the
Star is Born did pretty well.
But there are films that I would say are more artfully crafted on that list. But I think if you want to. This is the weird thing about calling something best.
Yeah.
Because you are putting value on a lot of different variables and rolling it into a ball and praying your math is right. So it's hard to say. But
you're saying it's subjective.
Yes.
Okay.
And due to the fact that it is subjective, if you hedge all of those sort of subjective variables together, I would say that Black Panther is the best film. Of the year.
Which was your favorite film of those? That's what I'm trying to get at. Is which is the one you like? Because nobody cares what we think anyway.
That's true.
Which would you pick for Best Picture? If it is Black Panther, that's fine. I'm asking you a question.
It might be Black Panther.
Yeah.
I don't know. Here's the other thing. I might go complete opposite. The Favorite was very, very good. I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about that more.
Yeah,
I honestly
okay.
haven't given much thought. I just saw that Black Panther was nominated, and I was like, yeah.
Is that the sound you made when it came up?
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I can't do anything else.
You should make that a ringtone.
Good.
But aside from that as well, we also did get a number of emails and tweets.
Wait, what's yours? You can't just.
I haven't seen Vice.
So, other than Vice.
Okay, if I took Vice out of it, I would go Roma or The Favorite.
Okay.
I would go one of those two.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll bet you one American Doll hair that Vice will not be your your favorite.
I haven't seen it. I'm willing to go in with open arms and see where that takes me. But we do have a couple of emails and comments and responses to a couple of episodes that we've had recently. Thank you so much for that. We do appreciate all of those.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
If you are interested in getting in touch with us, you can email us in at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com, or you could hit us up on Twitter at onlymoviepod, as did Haley, who tweeted us. And with this comment about Bohemian Rhapsody. Just finished your Bohemian Rhapsody episode. Don't worry, I don't hate you. There's a backstory to that, which I'll get to. But Shahir was right about the Live Aid scene. According to interviews, that was the first thing they shot, so it was probably the most singery one in the film.
I just didn't see it.
You didn't see that as being a Bryan Singer scene?
Not really.
Really, the digital swoop under the piano into a guitar flick, the moving camera side to side with the piano.
A lot of people are doing good stuff.
The
these
digital
days.
CGI crowds that the camera zooms and swoops across. You didn't see that as a Bryan Singer?
Not really. Again, I don't really pay attention to Bryan Singer anymore. But like even in the past, I don't know. I just didn't see it. I mean, again, if Haley is correct, and I'm sure that they are, that is true. I just didn't. I don't know.
We and this is episode 199, I believe. Episode 200 is at this point confirmed to be our separating art from the artist episode. So I believe
it's like 98%.
Yeah,
confirmed.
I believe we will be coming back to this topic. Thank you again for that tweet, Haley. Who else emailed us in about Bohemian
Laura,
Rhapsody?
friend of the show, Laura wrote us in and said, Bohemian Rhapsody has baffled me. As a cinema worker, I'm just going to throw that in there every now and then in these emails, she says, it's been a long time since I've seen a movie just so consistently do so well. Its sessions consistently sell, and people seem to love it. The only customers I come across who don't like it are the ones that are big-time Queen fans who don't like the dishonest portrayal. This, she thinks, proves that this movie isn't really for Queen fans. I think I kind of would agree with that. And actually relies on its audience members being made up of people who hear Queen come on the radio or at a party and enjoy what they hear. And because of this, I think that Bohemian Rhapsody falls into a trope that I am noticing a lot in popular films lately. And it goes on for a bit, but then the culmination of this, which I actually very much agreed with, saying that the most frustrating part of this is that it somehow works. People remember enjoying the moments, and they don't seem to care for the laziness or the incredibly inaccurate biopic storyline, because at the end of the day, they just have fun. And yeah, I mean,
I believe you said that during the episode. I think that was your point during the episode as well.
Well, I love me my food analogies, and that is 100% a very fast foodish type view of anything, in my opinion. So, yes, Laura, I 100% agree. Thank you for the email.
Okay, and then actually a little bit more. We got into some conversations about if Beale Street could talk, and this is from a friend of mine who emailed me personally about this, Mina from the UK. Who
so you're just gonna read the personal email.
I'm just gonna read the personal email. But Mina is a very, very smart person whose commentary I really enjoy. So I just wanted to add this in there. Listening to the episode of the podcast about If Beale Street Could Talk, I just get the sense that you guys missed a pretty important point. The majority of the film is a memory. This is a 19-year-old girl recalling a stressful time, the time she fell in love, and all of these mixed emotions. That's why some of the characters are two-dimensional. If you recall from that episode, that was kind of a complaint we had about that film. Because
I actually felt it was a strength. I didn't complain about that.
Oh.
Because I was using the term, I was equating it to mythology and how characters like that are like.
Okay,
yes.
all right. So, so for you it was a strength. For me, I think it was a little bit of a hindrance because, and as for Mina, they these are the people as Tish remembers who they remembers them, how Tish remembers them. Think the cop who has no humanity because he is the monster in her life. Daniel is so important because he wants so desperately for him to be a solid alibi, so he's elevated. I genuinely love this film, and I think Barry Jenkins did a brilliant adaptation of the book. I do slightly disagree with that, although the book and the film start out as memory. They do travel into areas that aren't Tish's memories. So I don't necessarily agree with it. Although I guess you could say there are the parts that aren't Tish's memories are poetic licenses on Tish's part.
Was there anything other than her occasionally narrating that let us know in the film that it is Tish's memories?
I mean, those narrations are kind of key to it, but the film goes into a lot of scenes that Tish wouldn't be privy to,
right?
And I think what Mina is saying is that those scenes in her mind were estimations based on Tish's point of view.
Oh,
but I kind of feel, I agree with, I like Mina's point, and I think it's a good way to read the film. I don't necessarily agree, and I still think it was problematic for me, though I still think If Beale Street Could Talk was a beautiful movie.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I didn't, to be honest, I didn't even really take into account that it could be a memory. Like, I get from a purely like, yes, let's make sense of everything's structure, that sort of narrative would normally allow... that sort of voiceover would normally point towards a memory, but there's never any... Normally when that happens, you get to a point in the film where, if another film is doing this, let's say, where we're now in the present and it like comes out of that and then you don't hear the narration again. And that didn't really happen here.
In the book, it is much stronger.
Right, but I'm saying in the film because I didn't read the book.
Yeah, no, I'm saying it is much clearer
a recounting.
From Tish's point of view. So I think it's an interesting point that may have affected us.
Well, speaking of reading the book, our friend Stephen wrote in on Facebook on the greatest book ever written by humans. Isn't it ironic that Shahir, the guy who actively avoids trailers, read the book before seeing the movie?
To which I say, isn't it ironic? It's like rain on your wedding day.
Yes, that was your response. We all saw it.
Did we? Because our Facebook page is a hotbed of activity.
If you'd like to write us in on our Facebook page, you can go to The Only Podcast About Movies. It's on Facebook. Or you can email us in if you have other things to say about any of the films we talk about today, we've talked about in the past, or we haven't even talked about yet at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com, or hit us up at onlymoviepod on Twitter. And if they wanted to, Shahir, to give us any sort of star rating or a star rating, where could they possibly do that?
You could do that on iTunes. I wish you could do that on Spotify, but I don't believe you can. So iTunes reviews are muchly appreciated. Muchly? Is that what I just said?
Let's go with it.
It's midnight. Okay.
It's past midnight, my friend.
Yeah. So Green Book, you were excited about this movie. Tell me why you're excited about this movie.
Because the trailer, I love Odd Couples.
Okay.
And this movie looked like it balanced some sort of classical odd couple-y stuff with some poignant social messaging.
Okay.
And it just looked like two great tastes that probably go great together. Okay. And I thought the trailer was effective. I know you didn't watch it. Mm-hmm. Which again, I guess I kind of have to ask, if you didn't watch the trailer, then how did you judge it and think you thought it would be samey?
Because of the odd pairing.
But how did you know about the odd pairing? Did you read about it?
Yeah. Well,
okay.
Just because I don't watch the trailer doesn't mean I don't know films exist. I am, I work in the film industry and I am a film critic.
Sure.
So,
I'm just saying, like, are you saying that all odd couple films feel the same?
There is,
or the formula?
There is a particular trope in American cinema that I think has probably been mentioned around this film a lot, the magical Negro trope.
Yes.
Have you heard of that trope?
Yes.
Are you aware of it? Kind of famously coined by Spike Lee as he did a speaking tour about, or a series of lectures on the way African Americans are represented on screen. And so the trope of the magical Negro, which I don't necessarily think this film falls entirely into, but when I knew what the film was, I kind of immediately thought of that. Mm-hmm. Is the idea that an African American person will save a white person for some reason, and what we will see in that storyline typically is the African American person exists in a film solely for the benefit
Right.
white person.
Yes, that is the trope as I understand it.
Yeah, that is the trope. It's many films. I think probably the most famous one that you could point to is a film like The Legend of Bagger Vance.
I was just going to say.
Yeah, but a film like The Green Mile. People have argued even in La La Land, John Legend's character, who is the who knows jazz the best, is there to benefit Ryan Gosling's savior
of course,
jazz.
Because he is a savior of jazz.
And then Driving Miss Daisy. And I think, when I saw what the film was, my brain just kind of leapt to kind of a reverse Driving Miss Daisy. And I said to you as well, I'm willing to see the film. I'm just not that excited by the film.
It's very rare that I put a film across your desk that is not superhero related, and you're like, nah.
But I wasn't nah. I was like, I'm just not that excited about this movie.
Well, you were like, nah, only because, not because you didn't want to see it, but because you only have so many movie-seeing hours in a day, and you had other things you were more excited for.
There are other things I was much more excited about. And I wanted to, because you were so excited to see this film, I wanted to enter it with a kind of open mind about it. Unfortunately, that open mind is very difficult right now with the kind of controversial backlash this film is receiving. And I think even just to kind of give you a little sprinkling of what I think is the issue here is that this is a sort of a small film that is being elevated into a position in culture that maybe is magnifying issues around it that I don't necessarily think are that problematic, but it's the elevation of it into that point in popular culture, i.e. being nominated for Best Picture. And, and there is a number of recent films like this, like The Help, like Hidden Figures, that kind of feel like what this film is going to do. And I think the issue there, I guess, to sort of point it to is in a year when Black Klansman, If Beale Street Could Talk, in recent years, Moonlight has come out. In years when we are existing in a discussion around Black excellence, a film like this, just on the surface level, before I even saw the film, kind of felt like from a different era. And that was just my, I'll be honest about it. Again, I didn't want to bring that to the film. I wanted to watch the film with an open mind. But if you're asking me why I had hesitation about it, that is definitely one of the things. And I think it's not necessarily the magical Negro trope that affects me so much, but it's knowing that there is a imbalance in representation. And I'm a minority, so I feel that imbalance, and I see it, and I think about it a lot.
Well, I was familiar with the trope that you mentioned before, and when I saw this trailer in the beginning of it, I was like, "Oh, that's what this is going to be." But then, as the trailer sort of went on, I was like, "Oh, this seems like, and it has the opportunity to sort of buck that trend a little bit, even though it is set up in that exact sort of way."
Yeah.
So that was what I was excited about, excuse me, going in. Because it and even beyond that, it just seemed like two characters that I would like to spend some time with.
Right.
So I was hoping as we entered into this little cinematic adventure that my suspicions would be correct.
I guess the only thing about that as well is that I think if you're going to play in that territory, you should have something profound to say. And I think what I got the impression of is that this would be a film about conquering racism in 1962. And I'm not sure that this film would be capable of doing that.
I think the spoiler alert, no one's conquered racism yet.
Yeah.
But I don't think this is a film that was ever, or at least the story that I was presented with, even in the trailers, ever even said that to me.
To an African-American man and a white man going deep south with the Green Book
sharing
fried chicken
is going to conquer racism. No, that's no.
I'm saying that's what the film's going to deal with, though. Right?
It's going to deal with racism, of course, but it's not going to conquer it. What it's going to do, hopefully, and we can discuss how well it did this going forward, is tackling sort of, is rather than using the term like conquer racism, use the term of sort of changing characters' ideas of what people of other races are.
Right.
That is sort of it's a micro, not a macro.
Right.
And
And that to me is also that kind of African American man or man of color existing for the purpose of another human.
And I 100% agree that is the trope as it is normally done.
Yeah.
I think this movie falls into that part sometimes, but I think there's a lot of sort of counterbalance to it.
Yeah.
After seeing it, and I was hoping I had the hint of that in the trailer, and I was hoping that would be the case, and in some cases it was.
Yeah.
I definitely can see both sides of that argument but
I mean, and again, that's just the reason why I kind of there's a little bit of a shoulder tinge or something like that when I saw what the film was about, and and that I'll be honest, that's me bringing a prejudice to the film,
which is fine. We all do that.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
So that's why, if you're asking me the question why I wasn't super excited about the movie, that's why I wasn't super excited.
And this is one of those rare cases where I feel. Have you watched the trailer since?
No,
you haven't.
No.
I'd be interested maybe in later next week or something like that. If you watched the trailer, I know it's hard to do now that you've seen the film, etc. But like, I wonder if the trailer would have abated or given you hope that the film might not do the things you were worried that it would do, as it did me.
Right.
Because again, if you told me the story of what this is, I'd be like, oh yeah, this movie is. Like whatever, but there was something a little bit special about the trailer.
Okay.
And it got me more excited for it than
I think I had seen like maybe the first 10 seconds of the trailer.
Well, that doesn't really.
I mean enough to kind of like know that's what the film was.
Okay.
But I haven't seen the trailer.
Yeah.
I mean, so tell us what Green Book is about.
Oh, I thought you'd never ask. A working-class Italian-American bouncer becoming the driver of an African-American classical pianist on a tour of venues through the 1960s American South.
Okay, that's I think they use an additional pronoun in there that they probably shouldn't have. It's late, and but yes. So the film is about Dr. Don Shirley, who's a famous pianist, who and his driver by the name. Just refresh my memory. Viggo Mortensen's character's name.
Tony
Lip.
Tony
the Lip.
Not the Lip.
And
just Lip. Tony Lip.
The interesting thing about this film, as well, is it's written by Tony Lip's son, Nick Villanogo. Is that how do you say it? I should know this.
Vallelonga.
I should Nick the Lip.
It's not the. It's Nick Lip.
Nick Lip.
There you go.
No. Written by his son, based
It's
upon.
not Nick either. It's Tony. We both fucked that up. I've been saying Tony beforehand. You just said
No. The son Nick.
Oh,
wrote.
I fucked it up then. So Nick, he might not be the Lip though.
No, he's not the Lip. I was trying to make a joke and you didn't.
It's
hear
okay. We're back on track.
Okay, it's midnight. Let's see if we can do this.
Deep breaths.
Deep breath. Let's shake it off. And we're back. Are you back? I'm not back.
I'm like 3 hours earlier.
Yeah, okay. So this is a tour of the Deep South in 1962 with the title of the Green Book. So the title of the Green Book should tell you something about the context with which this journey is going to take place, which is that it has to do with the lack of safe space for African-American travelers in the Deep South, which is what the Green Book, was designed to mitigate in some way by offering travelers who happen to be traveling some sense of where would be a safe place and how to avoid sundown towns. And then sundown towns, which are mentioned in this film, are towns where African Americans weren't allowed out after sundown. And there's a really great little short piece on Vox about the history of the Green Book and how it came to be and what it meant.
I believe I watched that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, and it kind of the point that the Vox doc highlights is the 1960s notion, the Route 66, the traveling across the continent in vehicles, the sort of creation of disposable income post World War II is something that that American history likes to mythologize and likes to promote as a sort of time of exuberant adventure and discovery of the American Midwest and South. But unfortunately, that was not something that was shared by all citizens of America.
Yes.
And for the case, the reason why Green Book is a fascinating idea is that is about the oddest pairing of people you can imagine. One is a PhD in psychology and an acclaimed classical pianist, and the other is a guy from the Bronx.
Yeah.
A guy from the Bronx.
He's a bouncer.
Yeah.
He's a bouncer at the Copa.
Yeah, bouncer at the Copa. And I will say this about the film in my initial readings. Now, again, this is one of those situations where we have just watched the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Like literally
We got off my couch.
about 30 minutes ago.
And then we walked in the studio, and we just went.
It's a cool story, bro.
And then when we were done wenting, we started the podcast.
Okay, all right. I will say this. I don't think the film is as offensive as many think pieces would suggest this film is at this point. I think it's a fairly inoffensive film about a complicated story. But I do think, unfortunately, there is a desire to move past these kinds of stories. And I'm reminded by a bit that Chris Rock had. Chris Rock did, I can't remember which special it had, but he talked about moving into his neighborhood in New Jersey. And he mentioned the fact that he, humbly so, is one of the most significant African-American comedians since Eddie Murphy.
Sure.
He believed he had earned that place in history. And the other African-American person who lived in his neighborhood was Jay-Z. And then he made the comment that his neighbor was a dentist. And, the idea there was that he had to be exceptional to move into that neighborhood where the other person had to be a dentist. And I think the reason I have some reticence about this film is the point of view. And it has to do with this extraordinary man being the secondary character to an ordinary man. And it feeling a little bit... what's the word? I guess imbalance is the word, but that is also what I'm saying is problematic because that has to do with the film I kind of want to see versus the film I did see.
Well, that's never stopped you before.
That's never stopped me before. And I think the problem is with the film that I did see was as I kind of predicted it to be in my estimation, again, with heavy prejudice, fairly typical of what I expected it was going to be. To the point where I kind of knew where it was ending, I knew where it was going, I knew the conflicts that would arise, and I didn't feel very surprised by a lot of this film.
Sure.
I felt it kind of, it this will sound more pejorative than it is, and I think this has to do with just having seen it, but it coasts along just fine.
Yeah, it works thematically.
It coasts along just fine.
I think here's the thing. Well, I disagree with. Well, actually, you kind of took it back a little bit too. I don't think the film is unbalanced. What I think it is, and I think is the reason why it's getting so much blowback, is while it does buck many of the tropes we talked about in the beginning. The issue I have with it, and this is going to be weird, so follow me down this rabbit hole. Is I at the end of it, and even during it, I was like, who is this film for?
Right. Doesn't
feel like it's for African Americans.
No.
It feels like it's for white dudes.
And it's written.
Look, everyone can make any art that they want to do as long as they're not hurting anybody. And I was like, I bet you this is a white dude in his 50s who directed this film. And I looked it up, and
Peter Farrelly.
Peter Farrelly, yeah. So like.
The director of Dumb and Dumber.
Yes. Who was on a Wait, Don't Tell Me recently, and it was very, very funny.
Yeah. I like Dumb and Dumber, by the way.
Dumb and Dumber's great.
Yeah.
The two sequels or prequel or whatever.
I haven't seen that.
Don't. So, and that to me is the most problematic part. Now, I have a counter argument to that argument, which I'll bring up later when it sort of comes up, but I don't actually know which side of that I fall into.
Well, I think you should bring it up now because that's too cryptic not to bring up now.
Okay. So while I do think that one of the problematic things is this is a odd couple thing dealing with race that at the end of the day is designed to make white people feel good.
Yeah.
Which I think is problematic.
Yeah.
The thing I think it could do is actually, because again, even going back to our emails about like stories that are sort of simple, getting at least getting the attention more than complex stories. A film like this, in a weird way, could affect people in a positive way. And by this I mean helping to change the ideas of certain white people. And this is why I'm saying this. I saw in the character of Tony a lot of the adult men that I grew up with. And it's not that I think that they were ever... Well, no, they were racist. They were just racist in like what would be considered like a non-violent way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, casually racist.
Casually racist.
Yeah.
But I noticed throughout my life, especially growing up, that all it took, and this is I'm not going to blow anyone's mind with this statement, but all it took to evade that, which was probably built in from their parents, was interacting with a person from another background at a regular basis. And the second that happened, I even watched people in my life growing up like change their tune. Obviously, a film is no substitute for that, but it might be able to. And I don't know if this is enough good to sort of disperse the sort of the negative of what I said before, but it could help certain people in that way take the first step to being a little less of a dick.
Here's my question to you.
Yeah.
Do you think that African Americans need to mitigate the extraordinary things that people have done in order to placate white people who might be racist?
No.
And because this is a film, like, for example, Driving Miss Daisy exists because The Legend of Bagger Vance exists, because other movies exist. Do we need to keep doing this for the sake of white people who might be racist?
It's interesting. I don't. The short answer is no. The longer answer would be how societally beneficial is it to help stupid people stop being racist?
Let me put it to you this way: we have, and I hate putting it in these terms. And this is borrowing the title of Ta-Nehisi Coates' book, We Had 8 Years in Power.
Sure.
Which is that we had the most extraordinary African-American president who was a Harvard law professor in constitutional law.
Yeah.
You know, like the most qualified man to probably have taken the office.
And we did that pendulum swing.
And we did that pendulum swing into a man who accused that person of not being an American for his entire, I'm holding on my fingers here, political career. Do we really need to diminish or not fully celebrate the life of Don Shirley just to placate people who might
and that's where it gets more complicated.
And I say that because Nick Villalonga was famously recently, one of the things that came out because of this film is that he would retweeted Donald Trump about his claim that Muslims were like dancing in the street in New Jersey, and you know what I mean?
So here's the shitty part. I mean, there's lots of shitty parts, but the fact that it's real people makes it more problematic.
Okay.
Because it's exactly what you just said. We are ignoring the greatness of one person, the African-American person, and sort of probably elevating the personality of the white person. Rather, again, and I'm literally going, assuming this based on the fact that he retweeted a Trump tweet about
he has a since apologized for it, but I think it is
great. But this whole story is about how he's supposed to be learning, and apparently he didn't.
Yeah.
So that to me is a more damning thing, and it makes sort of swallowing the message that this film is trying to bat to the cheap seats. I will say harder to take.
The messaging of the film isn't incorrect. Yes, we should be accepting of other people. We need to come together, and yada yada yada.
Yeah.
But that is a message that ignores the historic inequality that exists.
100%.
You know, in a way that is profoundly misrepresentative of like the horror, the idea of like having to leave your, you know, not be outside at sundown in the South while being Dr. Don Shirley that's a horror movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not a buddy. It doesn't strike me. Unless if you're going to do a buddy goofy.
I don't think this movie's particularly goofy.
It is kind of a goofy comedy, right? Like it is a comedy. If you're gonna
there are funny parts. If you're
gonna do a goofy buddy flick,
which I don't think this is a goofy buddy flick.
What is it then?
It's a drama.
It's straight up drama.
It's a drama with comedy in it in certain parts. I wouldn't call it like it's a. So when you say buddy comedy, I think Dumb and Dumber.
Right.
When you say something like this, I would say Odd Couple. That's sort of
which was a comedy.
Yes, but it's not. It's not like.
Are you getting into semantics about comedy versus drama here? Like, could you in your
on the spectrum of this film, I would say this is probably about, if we want to get super technical, I would say 70%, maybe 65% drama, and then the other percentile comedy.
I like that you can pull numbers out of it, but I'm just saying, like, in your estimation, could you see this as a comedy?
I would never say, "Oh, did you see the comedy Green Book?" So no.
So it's not a comedy at all.
I don't feel like it is. I feel like it's a film that has funny moments in it, but
okay.
I would never be like, "Oh man, what good comedies came out?"
Okay.
Would you if you said, "Oh,
I would say this is a comedy." To me, this is a comedy.
Really?
Yeah, this is a comedy. I think we have different definitions of what a comedy is, but I think, and my bigger point here is that if you're going to do a comedy, a buddy road trip comedy about two people traveling the South, you know, then I think you have to be profound about it. You have to have something really amazing to say about.
Are you saying one of these that deals with the issues that this movie tries to deal with, or just in general?
I think in general, if you're going to deal with 1962 on the road in the South with Don Shirley.
But that's dealing with actual real life heavy issues. What I'm saying is, I'm saying, does everybody comedy have to have that gravitas?
Why would I say everybody comedy?
You you literally just. We can rewind the tape.
Okay, listen to what I'm saying. What I'm saying here is, if you are going to do a film about traveling to the South with Dr. Don Shirley,
yes,
and do a film about the Green Book. And have him and a white guy traveling through doing this sort of goofy buddy comedy, which is what I think it is, you better have something really profound to say.
Right.
And I'm saying this film basically says we need to come together, which is a message I've heard before. And I, am not that excited by. I don't think it's a bad message, and I don't think the movie does it badly. But I'm just saying, if you're going to do that, if you want to make it, if you want to do this film, if you're Peter Farrelly, a guy who's built his career up on doing Dumb and Dumber and those kinds of movies, and you want to make the switch into this kind of movie, you better have something really profound to say.
And I agree with everything you said. What I was rallying against was, you did say the statement, you believe every buddy comedy has to have something very important to say.
That is not what I said.
It is.
No, hold on. I think you misinterpreted what I said. What I said was, if you're doing a buddy comedy about going to the South with Don Shirley and doing it as
you said that eventually, yes, and I agree, so it was just a matter of sort of I jumped on something probably before you finished or something like that. So I was reacting to the very first statement when I should have been listening to the entire thing.
Okay. All right, and that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're gonna do this, you should do it. Like, and the film that comes to mind when I think about this is a film called Four Lions. I don't know if you've ever seen that. Four Lions is a incredibly masterful comedy about terrorism, and it's the idea that terrorism as a concept could be funny. And the thing that's amazing about that film is it's hysterically funny. And it's profoundly weird and strange and twists our view on what we know about it, of what we could think about terrorism. And I'm just saying, if you're going to do a film about racism that's in this mold, this kind of road trip thing, and Driving Miss Daisy already exists, then it needs to be kind of profound. Right, like it needs to do something pretty big
at this point. Yes, the only, and again, I agree, but the only devil's advocate point that I can possibly make is that the reason this, how do I put it? It's the reason why you said you kind of didn't want to see it in the first place.
Right.
Was this has been a message that you've heard from this perspective time and time again.
And the idea that we're doing it because white people need to not be racist anymore, that to me seems like a sucky reason to do it.
Sure. But I'm trying to think of. I've tried to with some people back home. I've tried to think of ways to do that in a not sucky way.
Right.
But oftentimes you are batting for the lowest common denominator. And should we have to do it? No. But but then at the same time, and again, this is not the only way to combat this. It's just like, is the alternative then? I don't know. It's something that's...
And I'm just going to say this here. Like, I don't know a lot about Don Shirley. I'm not going to pretend like I know more about Don Shirley. I'm introduced to Don Shirley from this movie.
Sure.
Right? I listened to some music of his before I went in to see the movie because I knew it was about it, so I kind of wanted to acquaint myself with his music. But I don't know a lot about the man. And I'm saying, if you're going to introduce this character who is like this remarkable human being, this extraordinary human being, do we need to do it at the benefit of like making white people understand racism?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that was the problematic part, is the fact that it was a real person.
Yeah, and that's I think I'm sounding harsher than I actually feel about this film.
I think you're sounding appropriately harsh. I don't think
because the film I think is actually just fine.
Well, I mean, look, we can and we should, I guess. I mean, I think the performances are great. I think the cinematography is serviceable. I think the sound mixing actually was very, very good.
I was curious about the choice of music, which I felt very much was Tony's music, despite being in a film about a musician. You know what I mean?
I mean, you're talking about other than
when we heard Don Shirley performing.
I only remember Don Shirley's
There
music.
was a lot of like doo-wop hits like right at the beginning, and I felt like we're in Tony's world.
Oh,
and
I see what
I
you're
kind of was like, oh, this is a movie about a musician, yet it's sort of fairly traditionally, scored in that zone. And I just sort of saw that as a little bit like, okay, cool.
What I'm saying. Well, again, I was saying mixing, not soundtrack.
Fair enough.
I just thought the way that they sort of jumped in and out of his music was very, very good. I think there was a lot of sound cues that I sort of like. I don't know. I enjoyed the very sort of small nuances of scenes that had. This was good. The sound mixing was, and sound design, I guess, was good. I've said to you while we were watching it, I always forget that, I like Viggo Mortensen. He's one of those people that I'm like, I never think about. And then when I see him and stuff, I'm like, oh yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he's great. And the other thing is Mahershala Ali really does own this role. He has got a commanding presence. I think I remember when we talked about Moonlight, the scene where Mahershala Ali breaks in, basically opens the wall is like, I think one of the most erotic images I've seen in a film. It is like powerfully, substantially erotic. He's just got this incredible presence where I completely understand why he's a screen.
It's erotic?
Yeah, it's erotic. Erotic doesn't just mean like naked, if that's what
doesn't it have an intrinsic sexual
component? It does. And for that young character who's seeing the man who he's modeled himself on,
yes.
I think it is an incredibly erotically charged image. And I think Mahershala Ali is an incredible screen performer. He is.
Oh, absolutely.
He commands the screen. And the thing that was cool about it is that Viggo Mortensen's character seemed intimidating at the beginning of the film. That's like his entire MO. And then when Mahershala Ali comes on screen and Don Shirley comes on screen, he's diminished. Not just visually, but he kind of acts more diminished.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a really cool trade-off in the film.
Something this movie does do well is it shows different types of power and where that power comes from and what limits certain powers have.
Right.
You could, we'll sort of get into a bit of spoiler territory, but you have the moment of when Tony kicks the guy out of the Copa, and you realize he's the big, strong guy that no one fucks with. Okay, cool. Then you have the moment where he goes and meets with the Don's name.
Don Shirley?
No.
The Don, the I don't know what his name was.
I guess the character doesn't have. And then he's sort of a little bit sort of he's a little bit sort of intimidated there, but in a different way than when he goes to meet Don Shirley.
Yeah.
and then as sort of they get into their tribulations on the road, sometimes and I think this is a little bit imbalanced, but sometimes Tony has the upper hand in situations, sometimes Don does, depending on what they're dealing with or what level of things they're dealing with. So I thought that was sort of interesting of the film.
Here's one thing. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I?
Oh no, I was just gonna say the last thing, just on the acting a little bit. Linda Cardellini needs to start getting some roles that are not.
What is? I know the face. I don't know the.
So she was originally in Freaks and Geeks.
Okay.
And she has done a couple comedies. She was actually in Grandma's Boy, and she was very funny in that. But then she was also she's just been doing Housewives for a while, and I'm just like. She's so good. She could do like a bunch of different stuff. She's done a bunch of different stuff, and I was just like, oh, cool. She's the wife.
I think one thing that I think is, and when I say, I think when I said it needs to be profound, if you're going to do this, is the scene that I kind of was like humming and hawing about most was fried chicken.
Yeah, that was
fried chicken. Fried chicken is. And this is where the situation of having people of color behind the work, I think, and I don't know how Mahershala Ali felt about this scene or how it was pitched to him and how he delivered it either, but fried chicken is a very potent image for African American people. It is an image that has been derided against them for many years. It is an image of post-colonialist racism.
Yeah.
And it's a really tricky one, to the point I have African American friends who they don't want to eat fried chicken in public,
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because of that association. And I think if you're going to do a scene where a white guy is teaching a black guy about fried chicken, I think you need to be aware of that connotation, and I think you need to do something with it other than just have it. Now, the Shirley family has repudiated this film fairly publicly and said that they think it's a symphony of lies is the way they described it. And some of the things they said is that Don Shirley was an activist, was well connected to his family, was very aware of the African American experience, and would know the historical import of fried chicken and wouldn't understand that. And to have a character teaching him about fried chicken, I'm like, you really gotta do something with that. And I'm not sure this film.
Well, I don't even. Here's the thing. That was one of the scenes where I was just like, why is this fucking here?
Yeah.
It added nothing for me.
Right.
I don't think it added anything.
I like. You know what I did like is later on when he went to a performance and they brought fried chicken out.
Yeah. That scene's.
But it was a punchline at that point. Because Tony looks at him and goes, nah, you see what I'm saying? Fried chicken.
This movie has a lot of things where Tony thinks something is a punchline and the audience knows it's not.
Right.
That's one of those moments. I didn't have a problem with that moment as what it was trying to do in the film. I think the teaching of the fried chicken in the car is trite and kind of stupid. The more you're teaching me about like the different things that are coming about this movie, and I'm sure we'll talk more about this next week. It just leads me to believe like, well, if that's true, like why do it? Like it's really kind of shitty. There's no reason you couldn't make this movie and have it not be about real people. And then you not only would you have more leeway to maybe go farther or do things that could be more effective, but you also aren't tarnishing a legacy or changing a thing or making someone seem better than they were. Like there's just don't get me wrong. I get the monetary producerial, like based on a true story, like advertising shit that you can do with something like this. So I understand the monetary reason why this was done.
Yeah.
But from an artistic perspective, I'm just sort of like.
Well, here's the thing. Nick Vallelonga is the son of Tony Lip, and he says that he witnessed their friendship over the years, and felt like and he heard this story being told to them directly, and he felt that it would make a good movie. The thing is, I believe he didn't contact the family about it, and this is why the film is from Tony's point of view. And
He didn't contact Don's family about it?
I mean, Don's family are pretty vocal about a lot of things in this movie. Now, again, that sort of meta text, paratext outside of the film, but I think it's interesting to note because of my reaction to the film. Again, I think the film is actually kind of fine. It's fine. You know what I mean? Like I'm not super moved by it, but I think it does well what it sets out to do. I just think what it sets out to do could have been rethought a little bit. And that in itself is problematic because I'm talking about the film that I think I wanted to see, not necessarily the film I saw. It's just that I've seen
that can't be problematic for you now.
Well, yeah, now that I've seen a bunch of films like this.
No, I'm just saying that you've in the past had told me you were disappointed about the movie because it wasn't the one you wanted to see before. I don't think that's a problem for it. That's just sort of how you react to it, which I think is fine.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say it becomes a matter of, and I've said this before when it comes to sort of meandering in quality films about very strong topics. What it comes down to for me, and again, I hate to sort of bring it down to sort of a math equation or numbers or whatever, but that's kind of how my brain works. Is Green Book, the film, based on a lot of the stuff we've talked about, doing more harm or doing more good? To be honest, after all the stuff you've talked about and the film I watched and the things that I, even back and forth of the pros and cons of it existing in its current form, I would argue that it is slightly causing more harm than it is good. Based on the thing that I said and the thing that you said, and the thing I said was it's told literally to make white people feel good, and the thing that you said about we've seen a million of these before, why should we be continuing to try to make white people feel better? And then the thing about all of the stories and things that you've talked about and the historical context of it sort of weighs against it as well. So then we get into sort of the ever-present discussion of the nominations for the film and or why. I mean, I'll tell you why it's nominated. It's a movie about race that makes white people feel good. That's, and again, the quality of the film, as you've said, as we've both sort of said, is good. It's fine. Like from a filmmaking perspective, they did it.
Yeah. It's not, like we ragged on, and I mean, I really ragged on Bohemian Rhapsody, and I think this is no Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh, no. This is a competently made film.
Yeah.
That in no way feels disjointed. It tells the story it wants to tell adequately. At some points, in some scenes, I would say actually very well.
Right.
But no, Bohemian Rhapsody felt like, I mean, it's an honor just to get across the finish line at that point. But like, do I think that this film deserves to be in the same category as the favorite Black Panther, even A Star Is Born?
Black Klansman. If Beale Street could talk. No, Beale Street didn't get a best.
No. And I actually, anyway, it doesn't make sense to me. But then again, if Bohemian Rhapsody is there, then I'd rather this, but like this is. I'm gonna say I'm just dropping revelations. The Oscars is all about money and advertising, and they mean nothing. Except when it happens to swing on the side of what I would call progressiveness or goodness or however you want to call it. And then they can use that advertising to then make more quality content. But it's a big advertising campaign.
Right.
And it's so funny. I we do a movie podcast, so we have to talk about the Oscars, but I would be 100% fine not
Yeah, I'm always fine with not discussing the other. Look, again, my thing is I think the film is fine. I really do. I don't think it's. I think if you walk into this movie, and spend your money, you haven't wasted your money. I think there is a historical precedent that this film is playing in that it doesn't contribute to very effectively. It doesn't advance the cause. It doesn't change. I don't think it's going to change minds in ways that other films have or haven't in the past before. And I think to a lesser extent, it's interesting to me that this film is about Tony and not this extraordinary man.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But whatever. I think the reason I think that occurs is that the film was written by Tony's son. And why wouldn't he make, the story, the perspective that he knows foregrounded over anything else? And I think the reason that happens is that perhaps for a person who would retweet about Donald Trump's Muslims, were cheering in New Jersey, if a person was, went to enough to the trouble to do that kind of thing, they might not be a person who is as aware as you would want them to be about the importance of this kind of story.
Sure. But also filmmaking is a collaborative, as we all know, effort.
Right.
So there are multiple times that many people in this process could have tried to tweak or do things or da.
I mean, I can see why this film got made. I'm sure on paper, it's like, oh my God, they went on this trip. There's the Green Book. There's this guy, Don Shirley. There's racism that we're gonna overcome. I can see it on paper.
And that though is where I actually agree with you even more about that part of it. That pitch you just did is such well-worn territory.
Yeah.
But then again, oh my God,
we're really pinballing you around on this one, right?
I can't stop. You might as well just call me Nostradamus because I am now just going to blow your mind with another prediction. Hollywood will keep making films that have already been made because they make money.
Right. Yeah. I don't see why this film wouldn't get made. And I think I don't even think there's a problem with making this film, like this story of Tony and Don going on the road. I just think that if maybe a few more people of color or maybe some people who had really thought about what this story means and how it's going to affect people and how it could affect people and the historical precedents of films like this, if there was someone who thought about those things maybe a little more clearly, I think we could have gotten a really interesting film.
Sure.
Instead of like something that when I saw what the film was about, can you say when you watched the film that you were surprised by anything that happened in it?
No, but here's where I think we will disagree. Or maybe not, but maybe in this particular case, I don't know. I don't need to be surprised by a film.
Right.
I don't need to be.
Right.
It's nice when it happens, depending on what the film is.
Right.
But like, for instance, this is a different type of non-surprise, but it's I guess you could consider it the same. Again, I went to go see Escape Room. The sort
you mentioned that on 2 podcasts now.
And I still think you should go see Escape Room.
Yeah.
It was such a fucking good time. But I knew exactly what I was getting when I went in there. Yeah. There was not a surprise in there that I did not figure out, and I just let it wash over me, and it was lovely. So I don't think I need a surprise in my film. Do I think that, again, like we've even talked about, I think maybe surprise is the word I'm getting hung up on. This film is doing a thing that other films did before it. Other films have tackled the subject matter better. The interesting case between this and, say, a Bohemian Rhapsody is there's 1 or 2 scenes in Green Book that I really found myself enjoying. And there's a couple scenes in Bohemian Rhapsody that I actually very much enjoyed. But one is a train wreck, and one is just an okay film that's kind of batting outside of its depth.
So I guess I would answer that, or I would ask the question here. Take yourself out of you for a second, and take yourself into the position of someone listening to this podcast who wants to know what a critical response to this film, how a critical response to this film would work, and whether that, and how they could think about this movie. take your response of I kind of enjoyed it and I wasn't surprised by it, and does that apply if someone was listening to this, and trying to think about this film critically?
Does it matter if they're surprised or not?
Yeah, or does the fact that you don't think that it matters if you weren't surprised?
It depends on what type of film they're going in for.
Right, but
I can't judge what a person wants to go see.
No, but you can inform. I mean, you have a literal microphone in front of you to.
Oh, are we explaining how reviews work?
How
That's
reviews
great.
work? Yeah.
No, what I'm saying is it all depends on what I'm learning, especially it going 199 episodes into this. It's not as simple as, oh, I can go down the list and be like, you should see this or you shouldn't see this. Sometimes you can because of variants and things like that. This is a film that, despite its as we've all sort of said, averageness, has enough complexities in its characters, in its topic matter, in the history it's based on, that I don't think that whether or not I was surprised by it plays in at all.
Right.
Or should honestly play in for anybody.
Right.
I think you should weigh in all of the sort of things we've said beforehand. I don't think a matter of a film painting by the numbers, in a film that I kind of felt was going to paint by the numbers anyway, it didn't defy my expectations in a good or bad way, so it doesn't even come into the conversation. What's more important to me is what I feel like weighing all of the stuff that we've talked about before, and then you can decide for yourself, because again, because it's an okay movie. Right? You've even said it's all right. You don't even find it that offensive. It's just sort of, it's there.
I don't think it's an offensive movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in that case, you would then say, using your critical reviewer hat, I'm guessing, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, that people probably shouldn't see it because it's not doing anything fresh and it doesn't really deal with like all the stuff you basically said leads me to believe you would say, skip it.
Yeah.
Right. I'm saying it's at such a middle point for me as well. Middle points for me are very rarely an skip it.
Right.
It actually, you need to take more sort of as a listener to the show or as a moviegoer in general, you have to take a lot of the information, a lot of which you just told me that I didn't know before. And you have to sort of weigh that, because we can't go against something like, oh my God, this film is so good, or this is trash. It's too close at that point. So it all depends on how much the aspects that we have just discussed affect the person. And that's how I can't say go see it or don't go see it, because I don't know exactly, because there's no strong enough point in there to nail my opinion to intrinsically.
Right. Okay. I guess
that's why I like this is a sort of a tangent too. That's why I like discussing movies with you and in general and on this forum, is because it's not just a page and a half written thing telling you whether or not you should see the thing.
Right.
It's a discussion, and then it sort of lets our audience. I mean, I agree
you know what I
mean?
I agree with that as well. I agree with the point that we don't review films in the traditional sense. We want to engage with the film. That's what I've always said, is we should be engaging in the conversation that the film provokes. I guess where I come down to that is I'm not sure how you feel about the movie, other than it's middling, right? And I think, is that how you feel about the movie?
I think because again, if I do this sort of, I'll call it movie math in my brain, I come back with sort of like, it's okay.
Yeah.
And again, I do think for me personally, if I had to do the numbers, I think it does a little more harm overall out of all of the things we've discussed than good. Before we had this discussion, I was a little more 50-50 about it. And I was a little more hopeful after seeing it. They're like, oh, maybe it did some of it right. And I think it did do some of the things I wanted it to do from the trailer, but also learning the sort of problematicness around it is disheartening. So I think, again, I personally, I think that here's the deal.
Okay.
If you want a buddy comedy, there's better movies for that. If you want striking social commentary on racism or certain time periods, there's better movies for that. If you want historical accuracy about fantastic people that once lived. There's better movies for that. I think if you saw, and this kind of falls into where I was, if you saw a trailer for a movie that looked remotely interesting and then you went and saw it, not knowing sort of any of the things that we've sort of discussed outside of the film, you'd be like, oh, that was all right. At a very non-critical level.
Right.
I think, and it's kind of both the same and the opposite problem of Bohemian Rhapsody, where it's like, it's the same problem. If you don't think about it, it's okay, but you should think about it.
Right.
And actually, no, it's a different problem, because Bohemian Rhapsody I was watching and I didn't think about it until the end. This movie, I was thinking about it, and by it meaning like the topic matter of what I thought the movie was trying to do and failing.
Yeah.
I was very apparent of it throughout my entire watching. The fried chicken scene in particular was a moment where I was like, oh, this is still here and was here in the beginning. And I was like, oh, God.
Yeah. I think another scene like that is kind of the climax of the film, but it's or leading up to the crescendo of the film, which is when Tony says he's blacker than Don Shirley. And he knows more about the African American experience than Don Shirley, because he knows about fried chicken and living on the streets. And I think it's problematic. It is problematic, but I don't think it's like. I don't think this film is outwardly misguided, as in I don't think it's outwardly out trying to harm. I think the intentions are good. I think the complexities of the world are outweighing this, and I think this is the case of, again, Nick Vallelonga doing this film, which is that I think his intentions are right. I just think that this is an important topic to a lot of people, and it reflects upon a very interesting time that we're in here. And if you're going to do it, you should really do it. And then my final point about this is the reason why we're having this conversation at all is that this film won Best Drama at the Golden Globes,
right,
and has been nominated for Best Picture. And I think that unfortunately does harm to a fairly inoffensive film like this. I think this is a perfectly acceptable movie. It's a perfectly good, rent it on iTunes kind of movie, or see it if it's available to you kind of movie. But because it's being exalted into this place, I think that, and this place of being at the Oscars, the Oscars does signify something, whether we want it to or not, and it is an important cultural touchstone in every film-going year, and it means something. And so I think putting this in that conversation, unfortunately, does harm to what I think is an inoffensive film by exposing the problematic areas of this film. And that's where I come down on this movie.
And I think, while you said, I think, the, good intentions and all that, you know what they say about that road that leads to hell? It's that...
But I don't think racism is bad is a problematic thing,
no.
Right?
Again, if you fast food film it, no, it's not. No. That message is fine. But again, I think the fact that this movie... Again, no, I'm sorry. I'm just going to re-say the whole thing, so I'm not going to bother. I think if you want to look at it from the percentages of my perspective, it does slightly more harm than it does good overall.
Okay.
That's not to say that while I was watching it, I didn't enjoy watching it, but at the end of the day, I think my final verdict of it is it's a movie designed to make white people feel good. And there's a lot of those.
Yeah.
And I don't need... I don't know.
It's an interesting conversation. I think this, along with Bohemian Rhapsody and the lineup of Best Picture nominees, exposes the thing that I think really, I would say the Me Too movement has really been integral in doing, which is saying that we do need to think about representation, and we do need to think about how films are made, and we do need to acknowledge that films matter.
And this feels like, and I hate to bring up this term so late in the podcast because we've been going for about an hour. This is a classic Oscar baity movie.
I dislike that phrase.
I know you do.
I dislike it because it's so dismissive of everyone who worked on the film.
Sure.
It's entirely dismissive of all of those
Well,
people.
no, it's dismissive of the producers and the people that backed it financially. That's what it kind of is.
Right,
Because the
but
people
you're
are
only
still
talking
doing the
about that.
craft.
So you're just talking about the producers and the studio.
I'm talking about the reason why, if you back up sort of the reason why the film was made, not how the film was made.
Right. So to sort of to that point, I think it kind of reiterates something that I said, which is that if this film wasn't nominated for an Oscar, if it didn't win the Golden Globes thing, I think it is a sort of perfectly charming, like somewhat charming, interesting look back at a period that isn't necessarily often shown in film. And, and I think that is fine. But it is now elevated into a position where it takes the place of other films, and it gets introduced into a list that is the the important list of the year.
If you're going to be batting in the big leagues, you better make sure that your game is tight and that you don't have any problems in your entire sort of structure, unless you apparently are the president of the United States. Any other section apparently you will, and rightfully so, when you get to a big league, you will be scrutinized, and the entirety of you or the project or the art will be scrutinized, because more eyeballs means more judgment, and a lot of times rightfully so.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
think if you're watching this and
you're listening to it,
or if you're watching the film,
you're
gonna learn racism is bad, okay, and that's cool. That's cool.
It's cool because
racism is bad.
Because you cannot be racist. That's why the message is cool.
Well, me?
No, yeah, you. No, the viewer. That's what.
Yeah.
Again, it's literally trying to make white people feel okay. It's like, hey, are you a little bit racist? Guess what? Everyone's a person. You don't have to be.
In that vein, and I'm gonna do this. I think there's a documentary on Netflix that I think, if you're interested in this topic, in a more modern context, there's a documentary that I was just thinking about recently, and I watched it earlier this year, and I've forgotten the name of it. I believe it starts with White. It's a documentary about a woman who basically follows a white supremacist group for I think leading up to the Charlottesville March, and she is a woman of color, and she begins to have conversations with these white supremacists about like death threats that she was received being a person of color who is following white supremacists. And what she found is that over time, most of the white supremacists that she dealt with directly left the groups that they were part of just because of like their interaction.
Yeah.
And I think that documentary, which I apologize so much right now. I'm furiously trying to Google it as we go. Here it is. The film is called White Right: Meeting the Enemy and Jihad: The Story of Others. I think that is more complex. It is a documentary, and it is like, dealing with real issues that we have right now. But I think, that's doing what this film does.
And this is the thing, and I will go back, and again, I don't think this is outweighs the other things that this film does poorly or adding to a negative conversation more than it does help.
Yeah.
But like the thing that I was sort of saying in the beginning, and maybe this documentary, or the fact that this documentary exists and does it better, highlights something. People that have the problem that need the kick in the face very blatantly that racism is bad are the people that don't often think that they are racist and won't go see a documentary like that, where they might go see this and accidentally become a better person. Again, I'm not saying this is I'm saying that is one sort of angle where, and I don't even think that was the idea that they'd convince stupid people to not be racist, but like I think that is not accidental, a tertiary possibility.
Yeah.
If I'm looking for a little bit of a silver lining or turning some frowns upside down. So anyway,
I think we turned some frowns upside down in this episode.
I'm sure we did. Zoe is very vocal.
We're episode 199.
199. 199. This has been the only podcast about the film Green Book, not Green Room, though we do have that episode too, and you can go back and listen to it.
What number was that?
Oh, I'm not going to know that.
Yeah. I thought you had a database.
We're at 199. Shahir, when you are not being infuriated Let me rephrase. When you are not being baited by me using the term Oscar bait, where can folks find you?
You can see me pitching my movie about two best friends learning to solve racism on my website at www.shahirdaud.com. Matt, when you are not going after producers and studios for just wanting that hard, solid Oscar gold, where can people find you?
I could have thought of, you could call it shiny. You could call it...
no. When something so phallic needs to be called
full
hard.
of chocolate.
Yeah.
You can find me polishing up, get that, my acceptance speech at mattthewkrol.com for my life and works. Also Skeletor, the number 4, PREZ on Instagram, or Emperor MSK on Twitter. As always, you can find me as well narrating and show running extra credits on YouTube. We're dropping lots of good stuff. We're just finishing up the Sun Yat-sen series along with some stuff on Celtic myth. So check all that out.
Not the Celtics?
Not the Celtic. It's not Celtic myth.
Nothing about Larry Bird in there?
No. Sadly. Maybe one day. The dream. I love sport. Anyway, yeah, we'll see you next week for episode 200.
200.
Last time we wore tuxes and had Jess Tucker and Red Charzan on for 100. Go back and revisit that.
You know what, Matt? I got 199 episodes, and I'm about to get one more.
But what?
Yeah, that didn't work.